Hey everyone, it's Eric with Harryman Road here, and I've got some breaking news. I just received an alleged Bigfoot photo from the Louisiana Wildlife and Fisheries, and this is basically part of a 200-page file that I received from them, where I obtained basically every piece of cryptid information they had in their database. And not only did I receive this file, but I also got reports that have been documented from everyone from captains and I believe even some colonels and stuff like that. They were involved in documenting and obtaining these cryptid reports. So really shocking stuff. And we go from everything from this photo, this alleged Bigfoot photo, to they have mentions of, the Rougarou. I believe that's some type of werewolf type thing. And there's even some other photos of a possible black cat roaming there in these bayous in Louisiana. So I'm just going to jump right into it because this stuff is really just kind of amazing. And I don't think any of this stuff has ever been released before. I definitely know this photo, I don't think has been circulated at all. So if you guys want to see every single page unredacted of this report I received from the Louisiana Wildlife and Fisheries, you can go to my Patreon and check that out. My Patreon houses the largest collection of law enforcement Bigfoot related reports online. So if you're interested in doing a deep dive, you can go to my Patreon and check that out. Let's jump right into this first email. This was sent September 17th of 2007. So basically this first email looks like some people that are filming a movie and they need a bayou backdrop for this movie, bayou background. So they reach out to somebody in the Louisiana Wildlife and Fisheries, and I'll just read you the email. It says, Kel, here are several places in the Appaloosa Lafayette area. This should give them some choices. So not really much information until you scroll down and you see an image, basically a map, and it has a pin in it. And the pin kind of has an interesting title, and it says, Bayou Choctaw, reported Bigfoot sighting. Really doesn't go further than that. We have no idea where this sighting came from, who was involved with it. All we have is this little map with a pin in it saying, Bigfoot sighting here, which is pretty interesting. Unfortunately, again, we don't know how that got there or whatever, but it's cool that they had this kind of on their area or in their, in their database, they had this area mapped out as a, Bigfoot sighting area. So this next email is pretty shocking, and I've never really seen anything like this before doing a records request. I'll just go ahead and read you this email that came in March 7th of 2011. The subject is non-human primate. And it says, Dr. Centel, we do not issue non-human primate permits for Sasquatch search. We do issue research permits for research on our WMAs. A full research proposal should be submitted to Dr. Jeff DeGuy with a request for a permit. So here it looks like, I don't have the original email. Unfortunately, it wasn't in the file I received. But we have a request from a Dr. Centel for a permit to do Sasquatch research in one of these areas that I guess the Louisiana Wildlife and Fisheries managers. That's pretty freaking crazy to me that this guy, this doctor, is wanting to get a permit to, I guess, legally or, somewhat legally hunt Bigfoot or look for Bigfoot in that area. To me, that's kind of crazy. I've never seen anything like that before. And I don't really have much to say about that other than just it's kind of shocking. I'm going to go ahead and move on to the next email here. Now, this next email is pretty interesting, and I'm sure a lot of people have probably heard about this before, and I'll just go ahead and read it. It was sent on Thursday, 29th of November, 2012, and the subject is Sasquatch DNA analysis article. And it says, check out this Sasquatch article. From what I gather, a Texas veterinarian got DNA samples from a Sasquatch scat and discovered that it was the same as humans. So instead of realizing it's human crap, she thinks it's Sasquatch and some sort of human hybrid. It's good stuff. If the Bigfoot guy in Spanish Lake ever brings in a sample, we should send it to her. So obviously they're referencing the kind of controversial study that Dr. Melba Ketchum did in like the early 2000s. And this is what they're talking about. They're circulating this in this Louisiana government organization. And it's really interesting towards the end of the email when they mention this guy from Spanish Lake, this Bigfoot guy from Spanish Lake, we should send him their sample or we should send our sample or whatever, That's really interesting that they think, that this guy might have credible Bigfoot DNA or whatever that they could send. I thought that's pretty interesting that they, as a government organization in Louisiana, wanted to be part of this study that was going on. I think that's pretty cool and interesting. And I don't know, I'd like to know who this guy from Spanish Lake is in Louisiana. If you're in that area, please shoot me an email if you know who this person might be. But this was back in 2012. Interesting stuff. Again, I don't think anyone would have ever seen this without doing the records request. So pretty interesting. So this next email was sent on July 26th of 2013, and its subject is a bear sighting. And it kind of evolves here from a bear sighting. And I'll just jump right into the email. Just, hey, Maria, attaches a bear sighting report from last week. Bear was seen in a woman's front yard at night. Her nephew took pictures of the tracks the next morning. However, I have not seen the pictures yet. Unfortunately, that bear sighting report was not attached in this email, but I'll read you the follow-up email after that. So the response email from the bear sighting basically says, thanks, Kate. Way cool place to find a bear. Wonder if it came from Arkansas. So they're already kind of thinking of where this bear might have originated from, talking about that. And the follow-up email comes a couple of days later on July 31st. And it says, hey, Maria, that same week, 2 LWF guys saw another potential bear at Bobcow, WMA, near where this lady saw hers, but didn't have a good enough look for a positive ID. Yesterday, I also heard from one of the guys on Barksdale AFB, I guess that's Air Force Base, Barksdale Air Force Base, that 2 people saw a bear at different times crossing onto the base from private land. We'll get contact information and try to call him to confirm what he saw before writing up a report. Apparently, one guy said it wasn't a bear, it was Bigfoot. Also, we don't have a bear trap anymore here at the Mendiv office. I never worry too much about seeing, as we almost never get any bear sightings. However, with the recent activity, is there any chance we could get our trap back or another one? Don't know how badly they are needed in our offices. There's a lot of interesting information to take away from that email. If I'm reading it correctly, it sounds like there was an alleged Bigfoot sighting that took place on an Air Force base, or at least a Bigfoot was crossing from private land onto this Air Force base, and people working at the Air Force base reported seeing this. So is that military personnel reporting seeing a possible Bigfoot, or at least one of them reporting seeing a Bigfoot? That's pretty wild to me. And it all seemed like it came from started from a woman saying she saw a bear in her front yard, and it evolved to a couple more sightings, and then this sighting that took place near this Air Force base. And I really think this was reported by military personnel. It seems like at least 2 people saw this, and out of those 2 people, one of them said it was Bigfoot. So I don't know. That's really strange to me. I never saw any bear report, anything attached to that. So we can only go by these emails. But again, this is coming from the Louisiana Wildlife and Fisheries. This isn't on, an online Bigfoot database or a Bigfoot Facebook group. This is coming from their law enforcement database they have. So it's pretty wild stuff. And the emails kind of continue. There's only 2 follow-ups, but I'll read you the emails. It says, yep, I figured out how to get one. They're talking about the bear trap. I'm pretty confident that you won't have to trap one anytime soon, but it's good to have one up there just in case. So they're talking about the bear trap. And the last email in this thread says, thanks, Maria. I'll let you know what comes of the Bigfoot bear when I find out more info. So there has to be some type of report here, further report from the Louisiana Wildlife and Fisheries. I'm wondering if they went up and got the names of the people who reported this, or the person that believes it was a Bigfoot. I mean, there were 2 people involved in the sighting, so I'm sure that at least those 2 people were documented. And if one of them is claiming it was a Bigfoot, that also should be in the documentation. Super interesting stuff. So I think I'm going to have to do a deep dive into this and see if there's any more information, because this is pretty wild to me that it went this high, all the way to, military being involved with this. It's weird. And I don't know. I think there's more information here. So if you guys know anything about this, please let me know if you're in the area. I'm going to go ahead and move on to the next email. So this next email is pretty short and sweet, if you want to say that. And all it basically says is it's reporting a Bigfoot sighting. And this took place Wednesday, 28th September of 2016. And it says, I got a phone message reporting a Sasquatch sighting. Person's name is this name from Prairieville. Cryptozoology is well beyond my expertise. So this is someone from the Louisiana Department of Wildlife and Fisheries responding to this email saying, hey, I don't know how to respond to a cryptid sighting or whatever. And the follow-up email basically says, if you want to listen to the message, I have it saved. Unfortunately, again, this is one of those cases where I did not get that voice message. I would have really liked to have that message, but unfortunately, what are you going to do? I didn't get that. But I don't know. At least we have someone. I have the name of the person. It's not redacted. It's clear here. And I could do a follow-up seeing if I can maybe dial in a records request a little more precise to see if I can get that phone call. But unfortunately, after doing so many of these records requests, I've learned that after like 30 days or 60 days, a lot of these organizations, they'll just delete it and get rid of it, unfortunately. So we might never hear this phone call. It was taken in 2016, but I do have the person's name, so I can do a little bit more research on this, and I'll let you guys know if I do a follow-up. Now, this next email does contain the alleged Bigfoot photo that I mentioned at the beginning of this video. And it's an interesting photo. I really can't explain what I'm seeing here. It's just weird that I don't think this has ever been shown to the public before. I believe this is the first time anyone's ever going to see this. And it was a photo that was taken, or at least it was sent. This photo was sent on Tuesday, November 15th of 2016. And the subject basically says, pictures to identify if Bigfoot. And it says, hello, this is a picture that I'm sending you to look into as for identification purposes for potential Bigfoot sighting. And we have the person's name. It's attached here with the location, phone numbers. I have not reached out to this person yet. I might do just a full other video on this image and the background surrounding this image, but I'll just go ahead and put it on screen now. So it looks like the photo was taken on Halloween, 10/31/16 there. Really interesting image. It's in the morning, 7:29 a.m., and I can't tell if that's mist on the photo or like if it's just foggy, condensation or whatever, but it's kind of foggy out there, and you can definitely see the subject on the right side of the frame, just kind of hulking subject there. I don't know if that's a back or what I'm looking at. What that thing is on the side, if that's an arm or an elbow, it does kind of look like some type of elbow thing. And if you look really closely, you can kind of see hair coming off of that. So I really have no explanation as to what this is. I'm not really sure what's in the photo, but I do think it's interesting. And I've got a few people in mind that I'd like to send this image to have analyzed. And I also have the person's contact information, the person that originally sent this in to the Louisiana Wildlife and Fisheries. So I plan on reaching out to them to see if I can get maybe some more information, if not maybe a full interview. I think that'd be really interesting. So hopefully I'll be able to make a video on that soon. This next email kind of refers to a legendary monster that has been sighted in Louisiana for a really long time. That's the Honey Island Swamp Monster. This email is being referenced to the Honey Island Swamp Monster. It is interesting, I'm not going to lie. Basically, this person emails the Louisiana Wildlife and Fisheries wanting some information as to if it's safe out in the bayous and stuff like that. I'll just read you the original email that came in on May 18th, 2018, and it has a person's name, and it says, I'm a resident of Ouachita Parish. I reached out to you and your organization via Facebook Messenger, asking you for information concerning Sasquatch skunk ape animals here in Louisiana. So far, no one has replied. I need to know if these things are actually out there. I hunt and fish and have young grandkids who go out into the woods with me. I have never encountered one of these, but have been led to be persuaded that they are out there. The prospect of this is unknown terrifies me and makes me rethink hunting, four-wheeling, and riding with my grandboys. Please let me know what all I need to know as a resident and hunter and outdoor enthusiast. Are these things out there? What do I need to do to avoid them if they in fact are out there? And or what action should I take if I encounter one? Many thanks. So this is pretty wild. I mean, we often hear about, what if, Sasquatch is real, what they would do to the economy, would people be, able to go to the national parks? Would there be like hysteria? That's something that's always been spoke about in the Sasquatch community. What if all this stuff, whatever. But this is the first time we're kind of seeing that written out in form. Someone's kind of panicking, wanting to know, hey, are these things really out there? This is just one person. Imagine if it, spread out to a larger community. I can foresee a lot of these emails coming in or whatever, but the response is also really interesting. The way the Louisiana Wildlife and Fisheries responded is really interesting. So we get a response from a lieutenant there, or someone who's there from the Wildlife and Fisheries, and it says, "Not sure how to respond to this one. Forgive my ignorance, but is this like the Honey Island swamp monster urban legend?" So that's the first time they mentioned the Honey Island swamp monster, whatever. It's interesting that they're talking about it, but I think the follow-up from that person's email really kind of makes you think, is there something going on here? And the response to that basically says, "You are stirring fear in folks up there. Stop." And there's a bunch of exclamation points. So this person wanting to know, the person who responded to that original email, the person that works for the Wildlife Fisheries, is like, is this the Honey Island swamp monster or whatever? And then that response is, "Stop, you're stirring up stuff," or whatever. Don't even talk about it. And that's about it. We don't really see a follow-up. So I don't ever think they responded to that original email, the person with the grandkids or whatever. They never gave them a yes or no. They just said, "Stop talking about it. You're getting people riled up," or whatever. So really weird stuff. And again, that's kind of like the conspiracy theory we hear about Bigfoot or whatever. Like, what would the timber industry be if they knew these things were out there? What would the camping be? What would the, national parks or whatever, these different recreational areas, are they safe? You would draw mass hysteria or whatever. This is the first time I've ever seen that, written out. It's really interesting. And the response from the Wildlife and Fisheries for this one, at least, is kind of shocking. They just tell them to stop. Now, this next email is not a Bigfoot email, but it's definitely a cryptid email, definitely. And I really don't know what to say, so I'm just going to go ahead and read the email out. And it was sent on June 13th of 2018. And the subject is Dogman encounter in the bayou. And it says, "This early morning, 2009, 6 a.m., along a set of abandoned railroad tracks west of Crowley, Louisiana. It was foggy, and my dog Thunderbone, a 5-year-old German Shepherd, was creeping along the tracks when suddenly a giant dog wolf creature came walking through the fog between the tracks, standing on its rear hinds. It was at least 7 feet tall and 400 pounds. A wolf head and long arms and claw hands, yellow eyes and big teeth. My dog was going to attack this thing, but even though I was terrified, I raised my Remington 12 gauge and fired 2 buckshots around its head. It screamed and howled and ran back up over the rails over the bridge. However, I could hear the twigs and brushes snapping as it fled. We ran back to the pickup. I did, however, turn around about 75 yards, fired 2 more rounds in the direction for insurance purposes." And then it says, insurance purposes. "And then we split back to Crowley, Louisiana. I pulled into an Exxon and noticed a Louisiana state trooper having his coffee. I told him, 'I just almost shot me a Dogman over there by the old railroad tracks.' 'You did, huh? I have seen these hairy dog critters run in front of my police cruiser at night by the bridges and bayou roads. It ain't no normal dog or wolf. But our supervisor told us not to discuss these encounters as to not scare and cause panic to the general public. So you may want to keep it to yourself.' With that, I returned home and sat for hours trying to resonate the encounter. What surprises me is that the wildlife people don't report this more often. My thought was these Dogman werewolf creatures have to reproduce like other animals. And where they do live, how many? So by telling this story, I wanted to clarify that the fact that these encounters are real and dangerous. And even though it's 2009, I still have nightmares and wake up with the sweats and scared stiff. I know this much, I won't go alone into the bayous without being loaded for a bear. The Department of Interior of the United States told me that they have a special group of troops that combat these things, and that if there's a big enough gathering of Bigfoot or Dogman, they will intervene. And so he basically puts his name and phone number, and I really don't know what to say about that. There's a lot of information in there. This guy's basically reporting a Dogman sighting, and this is all the way back in 2009. I guess this is 2009. He didn't report it in 2008 until 2018, 9 years later. I don't know. I'm not really sure why he didn't report anything sooner, but I know Dogman kind of started to get more popular in recent years. Maybe around that time it started being popular and he felt comfortable talking about it. I don't know. As far as the Department of Interior stuff, hunting Dogman and stuff like that, I've never heard about that. Yeah, I really don't know what to say. It's interesting that there's a Dogman report included in this whole cryptid file. I really didn't expect to see that. I kind of expected to see the Bigfoot stuff, maybe even, who knows what else, but I wasn't expecting to see a Dogman report from 2009. But I'll move on to the next email. This next email came in on March 11th, 2020, and it really has no information. There's no text or summary in there. All we really have to go off of is the subject, and the subject of the email says Sasquatch pics. And attached are several photos, but I don't think any of them are Bigfoot or Sasquatch photos. They are interesting, and I'll just go ahead and show them on the screen now. Now, again, we really have no context as to what these images are. It looks to be maybe some type of cougar or even dog, something big and black. No idea about where these photos came from. It looks like they're from a trail camera, but we don't know the area really. I don't know. I really don't know what to say about this. Is this a black cat cryptid maybe? It is part of this cryptid file, so maybe they just kind of lumped it in there. But the title does, or the subject does say Sasquatch pictures. I have no idea why these were attached to something that says Sasquatch pictures. Maybe it's because they were just using that as like something like Sasquatch, like unidentifiable or something. I really have no idea, but these photos are pretty amazing photos. Again, I can't tell if it's a black cat or a dog. I don't know. I might do a deeper dive into this because I do have the person's name who sent it and I have their email. So I think I can reach out and potentially get some more information as to what's going on here, what we're looking at maybe. Really interesting email with some incredible photos that I'd love to have some more information on. These next emails, I'm going to go ahead and lump them together because they're part of just this incredible project that was going on. And it all originated from a records request that took place in 2023. Someone had submitted a records request trying to get all the documentation or data that the Louisiana Wildlife and Fisheries Law Enforcement Division had about cryptid sightings, Bigfoot, and the like. And the way the Louisiana Wildlife and Fisheries responded was pretty incredible. And they basically sent out an email to all the captains and majors in the law enforcement division saying, hey, we need to know if you guys have documented anything. And we need to know about like X date. And I'll read you a portion of it to see you can see what I'm talking about. And this is just a portion of the email. It says, have any of you documented any Louisiana cryptid sightings? Or have any of you documented any calls from the public that document such? In case you're wondering, that's Bigfoot, Black Panthers, or Sasquatch. That's a part of the email. And another part of this email basically says, majors, check with your regions on the provider public records request. Report back with any reports of activity listed in the request from your agents. So they're absolutely taking this seriously. They're having to check in, and that's also mentioned here. We have check-in emails that are basically saying, here's one of them saying, I have not seen a Black Panther, Sasquatch, Bigfoot, Honey Island, Swamp Monster, Skunk Ape, or Rougarou. That's one person saying that they haven't seen anything. Another person, we have a lieutenant in there saying, not any of mine, thank you. He's reporting back for his like region or department or whatever. Absolutely taking this seriously. They're combing through all their different regions and their, I guess, different people in the organization, different, departments or different levels, lieutenant, captain, whatever. And they're just gathering, if any, cryptid sightings or whatever. And I went through about 4 of these and they were like that. None, I haven't seen anything, never seen that, whatever. And then I came upon this one, and this one's pretty interesting. Again, this is part of that whole project where the Louisiana Wildlife and Fisheries, their law enforcement department is gathering all these records for a records request. And they're asking different people in their department. And this one is really interesting. It says, Chuck, I spoke with Hayden about this yesterday. Just to follow up with you, I had a gentleman from Wynn Parish tell me about Bigfoot he had on his property, but it was in 2016, I believe. I don't have a phone number either. Just telling you, this is outside of the parameters of the project, I believe. Thanks. So, we have one report from this whole project that was going on. And he even mentions it's a project. That's pretty wild. But this was taken seriously, this project, and we have one person reporting back, hey, I knew someone in 2016 that told me they had Bigfoot on their property. It's really unfortunate that he didn't have a name. He didn't have a phone number. I really kind of wonder how this was reported to him. Was it just somebody that came forward like at a public event or something? What's going on here? But it's interesting that we have a documented report that was involved in this project about gaining cryptid reports. We have one that's documented I have all the information. I have this name. I have the person reporting. I have who it was sent to. Unfortunately, we don't have the person who actually had this alleged Bigfoot on his property, which that kind of sucks. But it's interesting that that was documented in this project. That wasn't the only one. There was another report, part of this project, that was submitted. And this is right here. And it was definitely being taken seriously. The subject is Bigfoot sightings inquiries. Major Owens. Shortly sometime after Hurricane Ida, I received a call from a gentleman in St. John's Parish in the Ruddock area that stated to me he saw Bigfoot one afternoon around 2 o'clock on the Highway 51 in Low Road, crossing the blacktop in front of him about 700 yards. He stated to me that he just wanted to report it to us and also asked if we had any other sightings in the area. I further advised him that we did not at this time and we did not have any sightings reported to us. He stated that that was okay and he ended the call. Let me know if you guys have any further questions. So here we have another report, and this time someone actually called, and it doesn't mention if he still had that phone number or whatever, but this person was concerned enough that they actually phoned in and reported this Bigfoot sighting. I would have loved to have that call, but it doesn't say. It was after Hurricane Ida, I guess. I'm not really sure when that was. But this person called saying that he believed he saw Bigfoot. And I'm definitely going to have to jump in and try to get this call, because I would have loved to hear the details in this man's voice when he made that call to this law enforcement division of the Louisiana Wildlife and Fisheries. And that's just incredible because, again, this isn't a Facebook group. This isn't an online Bigfoot database where, people are having ads and stuff for sale. This is someone who called law enforcement authorities. And I think when you do have a serious sighting, when you have something that it's out of the ordinary, like a lot of these Bigfoot sightings, I think you do need to make that call. And it's unfortunate that a lot of people, instead of making that law enforcement call to have it documented properly, they'll go ahead and they'll post on a database or in a Bigfoot group, which, it is what it is. But if you're serious, call the local authorities if you're confident in what you saw, because it gets documented in a way that isn't really the case on a lot of these other forums and such. But that is all the information I received from the records request I submit to Louisiana Wildlife and Fisheries. You're probably sick and tired of me saying that, but I don't think this information has ever been seen by the public. I know those last 2 reports have never surfaced, and those are 2 amazing reports from law enforcement officials that were involved in a project looking for cryptid reports, documentation, that's just another caliber, another level of data, I think. And it's just really amazing to me. Not only that, but we had the photo that was a part of this whole file that I received through the records request. And that's an interesting photo. And I'm definitely going to have that analyzed by proper people that know a lot more than I do. But so much information out of this records request. And I can confidently say I've received every piece of cryptid information that the Louisiana Wildlife and Fisheries has in their system. I definitely plan on doing a deep dive with the information that I received from this recent records request, because there's some details in there that I'm able to narrow down a little bit more. And maybe I could get that phone call that was made by the person who saw the Bigfoot crossing the blacktop in front of him. I'd really love to get that Bigfoot bear that was mentioned. They say there was a report about that. Unfortunately, it wasn't attached. And I'd really like to know if they went onto an Air Force base to get interviews of the people who saw that. Was the person who reported that bear or Bigfoot a military personnel? Those are questions that I'd love to have those answers, because if we do have a military personnel basically saying we saw a Bigfoot on an Air Force base, that's raises a lot of questions for me too. If you want to see all the pages in full unredacted glory, you can check them out on my Patreon. And I really appreciate anyone who's interested in supporting the channel. Please check out my Patreon. And that's it, guys. I got a lot of videos coming up. So if you're interested in the content, you like what I'm doing, you like me doing the digging, the research, the hard data, please like and subscribe. And consider joining the Patreon. And I'll see you guys soon.